I still remember the sound the bar made when the young recruit asked her question. Glasses stopped clinking. Someone's laugh died halfway out of their mouth. Every old soldier in that room turned very still, the way animals go still when they smell something dangerous nearby. "Is it true?" she asked me. "About the humans?" I looked at her for a long moment. She was young. New uniform, no scars, eyes still bright with the kind of curiosity that gets people killed, or gets people wise. I decided, right then, that I would rather she become wise. "Sit down," I told her. "I will tell you the truth, not the story." She sat. I poured myself another drink, because some memories need a little help coming out. Before the war, we were told very little about humans, and most of it was wrong. Our instructors called them fragile, emotional, a young species barely out of their own violent history, patched together into a coalition partner because the greater alliance needed every able body it could find. We were told they would break easily under real pressure. We were told to watch over them, the way you watch over something breakable. I believed it. Everyone in my unit believed it. We had fought beside a dozen species by then, and we thought we understood the shape of courage and the shape of fear. We thought humans would show us nothing new. I was wrong about that. The way a person is wrong about weather, right before a storm changes their whole life. My unit was assigned to hold a supply corridor on a moon most of you have never heard of, and never will. It does not matter what it was called. What matters is that our position was weak, our numbers were thin, and the enemy knew both of those facts before we did. A human infantry company was sent to reinforce us. 30 of them. Ordinary-looking soldiers, smaller than most of my own kind. No special armor, no reputation yet. I remember watching them arrive and thinking, quietly, that headquarters had sent us children. The attack came 2 nights later. I will not describe every detail, because some things do not need to be relived to be understood. I will tell you only this. The enemy came in far greater numbers than our reports had predicted, and within the first hour, our position began to fail. Communication lines were cut. 2 of our forward posts went silent. Panic is a living thing in moments like that. It moves through a unit like smoke, and once it takes hold, it is very hard to put out. I felt it starting in myself. I will not pretend otherwise. I had seen positions collapse before, and I knew what came next, when soldiers stopped trusting the plan and started trusting only their own fear. And then I looked toward the human line, expecting to see the same fear beginning there too. I did not find it. What I found instead was something I still do not have a perfect word for, even after all these years. They were not calm because they were unafraid. I could see fear in them, the same as in any of us, but it did not control them. They moved like people executing a plan they had rehearsed 100 times, checking on each other, calling out positions, adjusting without panic. Where our line was starting to bend, theirs held like something rooted into the ground. I remember one voice, low and steady, cutting through the chaos on the shared channel. It was not shouting orders. It was simply saying, again and again, "Hold the line. Watch your neighbor. We do not leave anyone behind." Over and over, calm as a heartbeat, until it became the rhythm the whole battlefield seemed to move to. That was the first thing that surprised me. The second thing surprised me far more. During the worst of it, one of our own wounded went down near the human position, out in open ground, exposed to enemy fire. He was not human. He was not even from a species the humans had much history with. By every rule of self-preservation, he was someone else's problem, someone the humans had no obligation to risk themselves for. A single human soldier broke from cover anyway. I watched her go, small by our standards, moving low and fast, no hesitation in her at all. She reached our wounded soldier, got an arm under him, and began dragging him back toward the line, while the ground around them lit up with incoming fire. I remember thinking, with total certainty, that I was about to watch her die for someone she had never met, someone not even her own kind. She did not die. She made it back, soaked and shaking with effort, and she did not stop moving even then. She checked his wounds, called for a medic, and then, before anyone could tell her to rest, she picked her weapon back up and returned to her position, like nothing extraordinary had happened at all. I asked her later, once the fighting had quieted, why she had done it. Why risk everything for someone who was not her own? She looked at me like the question itself was strange to her. Because he was down, she said. And we don't leave people down. Doesn't matter who they are. I did not understand. Not fully. Not that night. I understood the words. I did not yet understand the size of what she meant by them. The battle went on for hours. I will not walk you through every part of it, because that is not the lesson I want you to carry away from this. What I want you to understand is what I began to realize as the night wore on, watching this small, strange, dismissed species hold a line that should have broken twice over. It was not their strength that unsettled me. Plenty of species are strong. It was not even their courage, though they had plenty of that too. What unsettled me, what I still think about more than anything else from that night, was their control. They had every reason, at several points, to give in to fear, to rage, to the kind of desperate violence that consumes a soldier who believes he is about to die. I have seen that desperation in soldiers from a dozen different worlds, including my own. It is understandable. It is even, in its way, forgivable. The humans never gave in to it. Not once. Even when they were afraid. Even when the ground shook and their own numbers thinned. They stayed inside the shape of who they had decided to be. They protected the wounded. They protected each other. They protected soldiers who were not even their own, at real cost to themselves, again and again, without ever being asked to. That is the thing nobody tells you about humans, the thing our instructors never understood well enough to warn us about. It was never that they might lose control. It was that they never did. Even at the worst moment I have ever personally witnessed, they held on to exactly who they were. I have fought beside species who become something else entirely when they are frightened enough. Something that stops thinking, stops choosing, becomes only reaction and instinct. I expected humans to be the same, maybe worse, given how young and unfinished their history still was. Instead, I found something that frightened me in a completely different way. I found a species that could see the very worst of a night, that could be as afraid as anyone else, and could still choose, every single time, to be gentle when gentleness cost them something, to be disciplined when discipline was the harder path, to carry someone else's wounded through open fire, not because it was ordered, but because it was who they had already decided to be, long before that night ever began. That is not weakness. I want you to hear this clearly, because it is the part people misunderstand the most. That is not softness either. It is the single most controlled and disciplined thing I have ever witnessed on any battlefield, and I have stood on more of them than I care to count. By the time reinforcements finally reached us, and the enemy pulled back, our line had held. It should not have. By every calculation my instructors had ever taught me, it should have broken hours before it did. It held because a species we had been told to think of as fragile, decided, individually and together, not to let it break. I looked for that soldier again, once things had quietened. I wanted to thank her properly, though I am still not certain what words would have been enough. I found her sitting quietly at the edge of the position, helping another wounded soldier drink water, speaking to him in a low, steady voice about nothing important at all, just to keep him calm. She looked tired in a way that went far deeper than the body, but she did not look broken. She looked, more than anything, like someone who had simply done what needed doing, and would do it again tomorrow if she had to. I never forgot that night. I have served many years since then, alongside many different kinds of soldiers, and I have told this story only a handful of times, because most people want to hear that humans are dangerous in the way a storm is dangerous, wild and uncontrollable. That is not the truth, and I think it does everyone a disservice to keep repeating it. The real truth is quieter, and in some ways far more unsettling. Humans are dangerous the way a closed hand is dangerous, not because it always strikes, but because it always could, and chooses, again and again, not to. They hold enormous strength and enormous restraint in the very same grip, and they decide, every single time, which one the moment actually calls for. That is what I would want any young soldier to understand before they ever stand beside a human in a real fight. Do not fear them because you think they might lose themselves to fear or fury. Fear them, if you must fear anything at all, because they will not. Because whatever happens around them, whatever chaos the night throws at their feet, they will still be exactly who they decided to be before the fighting ever started. Steady, watching over the ones beside them, refusing, every time, to leave anyone behind. I finished my drink and looked at the young recruit across from me. She had not said a word through the whole story, her eyes fixed somewhere far beyond the bar walls. "So they're not monsters," she said finally, almost like she needed to hear it confirmed. "No," I told her. "They are something far more difficult to prepare for. They are people who chose, on the worst night of their lives, to still be kind. And once you have seen that with your own eyes, you never forget it. You never underestimate it again." I set my empty glass down on the counter and stood, my old joints protesting the way they always did now. "That," I said, "is the truth about human warfare that nobody tells you in the briefings. It was never their strength that should have worried us. It was their restraint. Remember that, if you remember nothing else I have told you tonight."